For the last few years, almost every conversation about what is wrong with Overwatch eventually ends up in the exact same place. 6v6. Tank feels miserable. 6v6. Counter swapping is annoying. 6v6. Your teammates refuse to group up. Actually, 6v6 probably isn't fixing that one, but you get the point. 6v6 has slowly become the answer to almost everything. And the weird thing is, I actually understand why. I think two tanks can make the game more interesting. I think tank synergies are something Overwatch genuinely lost when it moved to 5v5. And if you're a tank player who spent the last few years being counterpicked and destroyed by the entire enemy team, I understand why another 600 health person standing next to you sounds pretty appealing. But somewhere along the way, the conversation changed. 6v6 stopped being something that could improve Overwatch and became the thing that's supposedly going to save Overwatch. And that's where I think we're expecting way too much from one extra player. Because Overwatch has problems that another tank simply isn't going to fix. 6v6 can make the game better, for some players probably significantly better. But saving Overwatch, I think that's a much bigger job. To understand why people have put so much hope into 6v6, you really have to start with tank. Because playing tank in 5v5 is a very unique experience. You are the only tank on the team, which means every mistake you make is incredibly obvious. Take one bad position, your entire team feels it. You die first, fight's probably over. You choose Winston, well, the enemy team suddenly develops a deep personal interest in Reaper or Bastion. You play Diva, they go Zarya. You play Roadhog, well, Ana is there. You pick Mauga, well, everyone disconnects. Okay, maybe that one is fair. The point is, there's nowhere to hide. In 6v6, that pressure gets distributed between two players. One tank can create space, while the other covers the backline. If you're struggling against something, your second tank can compensate. And more importantly, tank combinations return. Reinhardt with Zarya, Winston and Diva, or whatever cursed combination the player base discovers within approximately 67 minutes. Yeah, that was fast. That is part of what made tank interesting in the original game. Your hero wasn't operating alone. You were constantly thinking about how your abilities interacted with another tank. And I think that's something 5v5 genuinely struggles to replace. So when tank players say 6v6 feels better, I believe them. But this is where I think the argument gets stretched too far. Because fixing tank doesn't automatically fix Overwatch. It fixes tank, which is great. I mean, tank players deserve happiness too, probably. Unless you play Orisa. You don't deserve to be happy. There's something gaming communities are incredibly good at, and that is nostalgia. Give us enough time and apparently every game we used to complain about becomes a masterpiece. The original Overwatch is a perfect example, because when people talk about 6v6, you would think every match looked like an Overwatch League Grand Final. Perfect tank synergy, perfect communication, beautiful coordinated ultimates, 6 strangers becoming one unified organism. Meanwhile, the Overwatch I remember had someone insta-lock Genji or Torbjorn, another guy yelling at everyone to join voice chat, and 2 people arguing before the spawn doors had even opened. There were amazing things about 6v6, absolutely, but there were also metas where nothing died. There were ridiculous tank combinations, there were shields everywhere, crowd control everywhere, and depending on the era, you could sometimes spend more time staring at barriers than actually shooting at another player. 6v6 didn't stop Overwatch from having frustrating metas or balance problems. It simply created a different environment for them. And that's important because going back to 6 players isn't the same as going back to some perfect version of Overwatch. 5v5 and 6v6 are both trade-offs. 5v5 gives individual players more influence and reduces some of the visual clutter, but it puts an enormous amount of responsibility on one tank. 6v6 spreads that responsibility out and introduces more team interactions, but now every tank has to be balanced out around the possibility of being paired with another tank. And Overwatch players are very good at discovering interactions Blizzard probably wishes we would never found. Give the community 2 weeks and someone will create a tank combination that makes one choke point physically impossible to enter. There isn't a magical format where Blizzard gets all the advantages and none of the problems. Let's imagine now, for whatever reason, Blizzard fully commits to 6v6. It's the main format again, the announcement drops, the community goes crazy. Old players return, tank players rejoice, YouTube becomes approximately 70% videos titled "Overwatch is finally back." And honestly, the game probably will feel amazing for a while. There's something new to learn again. People experimenting with tank combinations. All players get the nostalgia hit. The entire game feels different enough to be exciting. But eventually, that feeling wears off, and then we're just playing Overwatch again. There will still be metas people hate, there will still be heroes that make you question whether finishing the match is worth the battle pass experience. Matchmaking will still occasionally create a game where one team looks like they're preparing for the Overwatch League, and the other team looks like they've met in the parking lot 5 minutes earlier. And Ranked will still give you that one teammate going 4 and 13 who somehow has enough spare attention to type a full performance review of everyone else when the match ends. That doesn't mean 6v6 failed, that's just competitive gaming. People are always going to find the strongest strategies, some heroes will always become annoying, balance patches will always make someone angry, and counter swapping probably isn't going anywhere either. It may become less oppressive for one tank because there are now 2 tanks influencing the matchup, but Overwatch has always encouraged adapting your heroes to what the other team is doing. That's just part of what the game is. So the danger isn't that 6v6 comes back and it's terrible. The danger is that it comes back, it's actually pretty good, and people are still disappointed because they expected it to solve things that it was never capable of solving. This is probably my biggest issue with the whole debate. Everything in Overwatch now gets interpreted through 5v5 or 6v6. Tank players isn't having fun, that's just because it's 5v5. Balance patch is terrible, would be better if it was 6v6. You lost 7 games in a row. Well, obviously Blizzard removing the second tank back in 2022 personally caused this, and it happens the other way too. If 6v6 has one issue, suddenly it's proof the entire format could never work. The queue takes slightly longer, case closed, delete it, back to 5v5. We did it, everyone. Overwatch is way too complicated for this. You have thousands of heroes, hundreds of ability interactions, you have maps, matchmaking, progression, ranked, balance, live service, and one guy who refuses to switch off Widow after going 1 and 7. There's just a lot going on. Trying to explain the health of the entire game using 5 or 6 is just way too simplistic. Team size matters. But it isn't the reason someone stays invested in Overwatch for almost a decade, and it isn't automatically the reason they quit either. This is where I think the 6v6 conversation gets much more interesting. Because when people say, I want 6v6 because I want Overwatch to feel like Overwatch again, I don't think they're always literally talking about another tank. They're talking about what the game used to feel like. Original Overwatch had this sense that something exciting was constantly around the corner. A cinematic will release and everyone will start talking about the characters. A new hero will arrive and the entire community will go crazy and spend weeks trying to figure them out. You will queue with your friends, discover some stupid composition, and somehow it worked. Then you will convince yourself you have invented the new meta. You weren't. The NA team was just worse, but it felt amazing. That's the part people remember. Overwatch felt unpredictable. It had personality. There was this feeling that the world around the game was growing alongside the game itself. And whether it's fair or not, 6v6 has become attached to that era in people's minds. So when some players say they want 6v6 back, I think what they're really saying is, I want to feel excited about Overwatch again. And that's a much harder problem to solve, because Blizzard cannot add another tank slot, but they can't add another nostalgia slot. If Overwatch is going to really thrive again, I don't think there's going to be one enormous update where Blizzard finally presses the button. It needs a lot of smaller things working together. Every role needs to be enjoyable enough that players actually want to queue for it. Ranked needs to make progression feel understandable. Playing the game should give you something meaningful to chase beyond watching your rank go up, then down, then up, and then very, very down. Heroes need to feel unique, without constantly creating situations where one character makes half the lobby miserable. Take Mauga for example and Orisa. And Overwatch needs to keep giving people reasons to care about the world and characters beyond just simply balance patches. Because think about the periods of Overwatch people remember most fondly. Were those periods perfectly balanced? No. Absolutely not. Some of those metas were criminal, but players were excited. They had favorite heroes, they talked about cinematics, they discussed lore, they queued with friends. The game had an identity that extended beyond whether your main received a 5% damage nerf. That's the bigger challenge, and no matter how good 6v6 is, it can't solve that alone. Yes, which probably makes the title of this video seem slightly weird now. But there's a difference between 6v6 won't save Overwatch and 6v6 shouldn't exist. I think Blizzard should support it. If tank players enjoy the role more with another tank beside them, that's a pretty strong reason in my opinion. If players miss tank synergies, just bring them back. If 6v6 provides a type of Overwatch that a significant part of the community prefers, I think that's valuable. And I also don't think 5v5 players need to suddenly be treated like they're enjoying Overwatch the wrong way. Some players prefer 5v5. Some prefer having more individual influence. Some people started playing Overwatch after the switch and don't even have any attachment to 6v6 at all. And some people just click quick play and have absolutely no idea there's a civil war happening in line. And those people might actually be the happiest Overwatch players. Maybe the future isn't about one format killing the other. Maybe both can exist. Because the important part isn't whether the numbers say 5 or 6, 7. It's whether we are actually having fun once the spawn doors open. So, can 6v6 improve Overwatch? Absolutely. For tank players especially, it could make a massive difference. But I don't think any format can save the game by itself. It won't automatically fix matchmaking, it won't prevent frustrating metas, and it won't suddenly rebuild Overwatch's identity. And unfortunately, it probably won't stop your Genji from using Blade at 50 health. Some problems are just beyond science. Overwatch doesn't need one big magical solution. It needs Blizzard to consistently make good small decisions across the entire game. 6v6 can absolutely be one of those decisions, it just shouldn't be confused for all of them. And despite everything I've criticized in this video, there is one area where I think Blizzard still absolutely nails it: the heroes. Because even after all these years, I generally think Overwatch 2 still has some of the best hero design in gaming. The way characters look, sound and play is probably one of the biggest reasons this game has survived through all of its problems in the first place. And if you want to know why I think Overwatch still does that better than almost anyone else, watch this video. Appreciate you all. I'll catch up in the next one. Cheers.